What would happen if I told you that what ruined Hamilton's performance in Hungary was not a technical error or a bad strategy, but a deliberate, secret, and devastating order from the top of Ferrari? Stay, because what you are about to discover changes everything. On Friday night, after a second promising practice, Hamilton was serene and optimistic to the media. Not by grandiloquent statements, but for the data. Its SF25 was beginning to find a perfect balance, especially in the middle sector of the Hungarian circuit, a section that requires a stable platform, a precise power delivery, and above all, a predictable rear train. He had succeeded. Hamilton had in his hands a car with which he could attack in braking and accelerate with confidence when leaving the curves. The job of tuning, thorough until the last detail, seemed finally aligned with its piloting. But what happened from Saturday morning changed the course of events completely. The first turns of the free three revealed a completely different face from the car. The stability disappeared, the rear axle began to slide without control in points where there was previously traction, and the general behavior of the SF25 became erratic. Hamilton soon noticed that something did not square. The sensations he had in the steering wheel did not coincide with those he had cultivated during the previous sessions. And in the modern Formula One, when a pilot of his caliber detects this type of discrepancies in just a few meters, there is more than simple sensations. There is an objective change. It was not until the engineers began to review the telemetry data that the problem took shape. Something had been altered. The configurations worked with surgical precision had been abruptly modified. In a sport where success is built on the slightest detail, where a simple variation of a millimeter can redefine the balance of the car, this type of intervention is not only worrying, it is potentially destructive. The most disturbing thing was not the track effect, but the origin of these alterations. The internal documents that later came to light would confirm the unthinkable. The order of change did not come from its direct technical circle, but from the nucleus of the Ferrari Performance Group, an executive cell of greater hierarchy. That is, decisions imposed from above the engineers themselves that accompany Hamilton in each session. A completely outside the usual protocol, which was also executed without informing the pilot itself or its immediate staff. In contrast, the SF25 of Charles Leclerc remained intact. Its configuration, focused on a more aggressive driving style in rotation and curve input, remained as requested. No change, no alteration, no setback. While Hamilton dealt with an unpredictable car, Leclerc enjoyed a family and optimized platform for that layout. Thus, the British pilot not only had to fight against the 19 rivals on the track, but against his own car, and even more disturbing, against the internal decisions of his own team. The technical research after the Hungary Grand Prix revealed that the changes suffered by Hamilton's SF25 were not mere minor adjustments, but deeply significant alterations that impacted the heart of the dynamics of the car. And this is where the severity of the matter is unleashed. The modification of the rear handling height and the change in differential configuration are not only sensitive parameters, they are structural pillars of how a Formula One car behaves. The rear handling height is, by definition, one of the most critical elements of aerodynamic balance. In practical terms, it is the distance between the bottom of the car and the ground. Lowering it improves the stability under braking, reduces the balancing of the car, and maintains the most attached to the asphalt platform, especially in high-speed curves. But raising it, even by a single millimeter, has an immediate opposite effect. The weight of the car moves to the front axle, which lightens the rear train and makes it prone to flying. That is, at least excess in braking or the slightest lateral sliding, the car loses traction. In a circuit such as Hungary, full of linked curves and with little space for errors, this means losing tenths in each curve, and seconds along a lap. The second affected component was the differential, that element that manages how the torque is distributed between the two rear wheels. Hamilton had requested a progressive configuration, with a soft and gradual torque delivery, ideal for clean transitions from the accelerator brake. However, what he found was the opposite, an abrupt, more direct and margin delivery to control the slip. The car went from being contained to brake traction with unpredictable violence. Every time he let go of the brake and began to turn, the rear train reacted suddenly, as if the car was trying to turn on its own without waiting for the pilot. Telemetry data captured this transformation with precision. Friday's traces showed a millimeter consistency, constant brake pressure, soft curves in the load transition, tire temperatures within the ideal range. But on the free three of Saturday, that harmony disappeared. The graphs became irregular, with peaks that reflected constant corrections, small blockages, and moments where Hamilton had to correct in full curve vertex. The car no longer flowed, it resisted, and that in Formula One is synonymous with total instability. And this generated a chain of consequences hidden with the naked eye, but devastating in career management. The rear tires began to slide more than the account, and that extra sliding increased the temperature of the housing. As the turns accumulated, the tires exceeded the optimal thermal range, which further reduced traction. This not only affects the return rhythm after return, but also compromises the career strategy. It forces to stop before, it limits the possibilities of undercut or overcut, and eliminates any sustained comeback opportunity. The most disconcerting is that these technical decisions were not agreed with their team on the track. Riccardo Adami himself confirmed that they were never officially notified. The order came from above, from a higher instance within Ferrari, which modified critical aspects without taking into account the driving style of the pilot, the conditions of the circuit, or the state of adaptation of the car to the layout. And that raises a much more serious question. Why was this? What was the purpose of altering a car that was working? Was it an undercover test? Or what was it? Beyond the conjectures, what is clear is that Hamilton's car was sabotaged by internal decisions disguised as technical optimization. And the most serious, the pilot never had the opportunity to react, to adjust, to reverse those changes before the classification. He went on track to compete with a car that he no longer recognized without having tried it in real conditions. He was thrown into the ring with a telltale sword, while his partner had a tailored arsenal. Thus it is not competed in equality. What happened in the Hungary Grand Prix was not limited to a track performance problem. The consequences of what happened with Lewis Hamilton's car extended far beyond the race, opening a deep crack in the relationship between the British pilot and Ferrari's high controls. This act is not only a technical degradation, it is an implicit betrayal of the trust that a pilot deposits in his team, especially in an environment as controlled as that of the current Formula One, where each millisecond is designed from collective work. Hamilton, known for being meticulous, demanding, and deeply involved in the technical aspects of his cars, soon confront what happened. As soon as the GP ended, in the post-Carrera meetings, he made it clear that the dynamics he lived in Hungary was not only improper of an elite team, but also attempted against the transparency philosophy he hoped to find Ferrari. The most serious thing is that, according to multiple internal sources, those responsible for the performance group that authorized the changes did not even clearly justify the reason for these drastic modifications, nor did they present solid evidence that they were part of a higher or development strategy. This caused an immediate tension between two power cores within Maranello, the technical track team led by Adami and the strategic nucleus at the central headquarters. While the first defended that the car was ready to compete at the highest level, the second imposed unilateral decisions that destroyed all that preparation. This fracture of authority is unusual in a team like Ferrari, and raises a direct threat to collective performance if it is not resolved immediately. Internally, the need to restructure the decision-making process began to be discussed. After the Hungary GP, an extraordinary meeting was held between members of the technical directorate, the engineers of both pilots, and key executives of the team. In this meeting, according to leaks, Hamilton demanded a complete review of the flow of technical information and greater autonomy for your working group. He said he could not compete at the highest level if his car was going to be manipulated without his knowledge, nor that of his main engineer. All this leaves an inevitable question in the air. Was this an isolated anomaly or the symptom of a deeper problem within Ferrari? And if it was, can Hamilton stay competitive while dealing with decisions that come from a level that he cannot control? For Hamilton, this was not a weekend. It was a message. A reminder that even in a structure as sophisticated as Ferrari, internal policy can overcome sports logic. And when a Lewis-caliber pilot, with more than a decade at the highest level, with 7 world championships and a reputation forged with excellence, begins to doubt the decisions surrounding its car, the impact goes beyond the track. He moves to trust, morality, to the motivation he faces every weekend. Because it's not just about piloting fast, it's about knowing that you have a team that supports each movement, every change, every attempt to improve. And this is where you, as a spectator, as an amateur, and as a passionate follower of this sport, come into play. What do you think is really happening inside Ferrari? Was this an isolated case, a communication error, or are we witnessing the first symptoms of an undercover power struggle? Is Hamilton victim of a hierarchy that still does not see him as the technical leader of the team, or was he simply trapped in a poorly executed experiment? And even more important, if you were part of that structure, would you allow this to happen again? Leave me your opinion. Are we seeing a tactical error, or the beginning of a new internal conflict in Ferrari? And if so, how will Hamilton respond in the next races?